We are going to learn 2 more sections before your test, okay? Which means that you're going to cover polygons, interior, exterior angles, all that stuff. You're going to cover parallelograms, all those properties of parallelograms, the 5 properties. And then we're going to add to it these 3 shapes, rhombuses, rectangles, and squares today. And then we're going to add 2 more trapezoids and kites. That means you have to stay on top of it. I'm going to post today a Quizlet that has everything up to this point. And then when we get through trapezoids and kites, I'll add that Quizlet on. But it is up to you to make sure that you stay on top of all that stuff. You can't possibly apply knowledge on shapes if you don't know what that stuff is, right? Okay? It's a lot of memorization and then application. So we're going to start with a rhombus, a square, and the rhombus, a square, and the rectangles definitions. We're going to find out. Rhombus, you call it whatever you want. I don't care how you pronounce it. Okay? The first is a rectangle. So these are shapes that we've known since we were kids, right? But by definition, a rectangle is a parallelogram with 4 right angles. So rectangle is a parallelogram, which means it has all 5 properties of a parallelogram plus 4 right angles. A rhombus is a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides. So a rhombus is usually like a slanted shape, but all 4 sides are congruent. So it looks a little bit like a parallelogram, but all 4 sides are the same. And a square, probably one of the first shapes you learned, okay, is a parallelogram with 4 right angles and 4 congruent sides. So the rectangle is a parallelogram, 4 right angles, and a square is a combination of these 2. 4 right angles, 4 congruent sides. So everything that's true about a rhombus is also true about a square. Everything that's true about a rectangle is also true about a square. How many sides do these have?
4.
So what's the parent shape?
Quadrilateral.
Good, quadrilateral. So they go from a quadrilateral, more narrow, to a parallelogram, more narrow, to a rectangle. So all those properties carry over. Okay, all right. All right, theorems, again, 613, 614, but the numbers are not important. I don't need you to memorize the numbers. I need you to memorize what they say. 613 says if a parallelogram is a rhombus, then the diagonals are perpendicular. If a parallelogram is a rhombus, then the diagonals are perpendicular. What's perpendicular mean?
Opposite.
Not parallel.
True. More specifically, they do intersect. What's it called? What happens where they intersect if it's perpendicular? Perpendicular means 90, yeah? Perpendicular means there's a right angle where they intersect. or 614 is also about a rhombus. It says if a parallelogram is a rhombus, then each diagonals bisect the opposite angles. So each diagonal bisects the opposite angles. So in the diagram that's there, is A, D, C, B a rhombus? How do you know that? What's the definition of a rhombus? 4 congruent sides. Are those 4 sides congruent? Yes. Because these are marked as congruent, I know this is a rhombus. It will either be marked like that, or it will say it in the directions. It will say A, D, C, B is a rhombus. One way or the other, you got to know. Now, based on what we just learned, we said the diagonals are perpendicular, which means this is 90, this is 90, this is 90, and this is 90. All 4 angles are going to be 90 degrees where they meet. With me so far? Yep. Second theorem says that the diagonals bisect the opposite angles. It means it takes those angles and what does bisect mean?
Cross.
No, intersect means cross. Bisect means?
Bisect.
Okay.
Cross in the middle.
They cut them into two congruent parts. Yes, two equal parts. Which means that this is equal to this. This is equal to this. This to this. And this to this. So this one, if this is 30, this is 30. If this is 60, this is 60. Did that add up? 60, 120. Yeah. Yeah. The individual angles are equal. And because this is a parallelogram and the opposite angles are congruent, this would also be 30 and 30, and this would also be 60 and 60. Because opposite angles have to be equal, because it's still a parallelogram. And then if it's a rhombus, you can cut them into two equal parts. Yep.
Isn't that considered a kite though?
No, a kite only has two pairs of consecutive.
That kind of looks like a kite.
Well, if you elongate the other side, it could be a kite. Yeah. We'll do examples with it. We're going to do examples with it. All right, so two more. So in addition to the definition of a rhombus, which is that the four sides are congruent, we know diagonals are perpendicular and diagonals. I'm going to record you talking about her mom and then send it to your mom, see how she likes it. Bisect opposite angles. All right, 6.15. Yeah. So now as soon as you see rectangle, you know the 5 things about the parallelograms are are true, plus 4 right angles, plus diagonals are congruent. All right, this is actually called a Venn diagram, okay? And what it means is that you have separate things true about certain objects and then some that overlap. So the big box, let's say, are parallelograms, okay? In all of these, the opposite sides are parallel, like this one says. Opposite angles are congruent. Opposite sides are equal. Diagonals bisect each other. And consecutive angles are supplementary. All those things are true about every shape that's on this diagram. Parallelograms, which are also rhombuses, squares, and rectangles. Then if it's a rhombus, we add that it's got 4 congruent sides, and we just said diagonals are perpendicular and diagonals bisect opposite angles. So if it's a rhombus, it has all these properties plus 4 congruent sides plus diagonals that are perpendicular plus diagonals that bisect opposite angles. I'm going to add to it. If it's a rectangle, then it has all the properties of a parallelogram plus 4 right angles, and then we just said rectangles have congruent diagonals. And then if it's a square, it's everything on this screen because it is a parallelogram, which means all the things at the top. It's a rhombus, which means all the things about a rhombus. And it's a rectangle, which means all the things about a rectangle apply to squares. So squares get all of it. All right, so this first one just says, is each parallelogram a rhombus, a rectangle, or a square? Explain. So look at A. Okay, first of all, it's a parallelogram. It already tells you that. What else is true?
It's a
It's a square. Why is it a square? Go ahead, Alyssa. Go ahead. Go ahead, Alyssa, and then I'll let Caesar do the next one. It has 4 sides. It only has 2 marked, right? But what do you know about the other ones? Because it's a parallelogram. So if it's a parallelogram, remember opposite sides are the same. So if this has 1 mark, this has 1 mark. If this has 1 mark, that has 1 mark. Now I've got 4 sides. So I just made it a rhombus, right? But then it also has a right angle, which means this has a right angle. And because it's a parallelogram, consecutive angles add up to 180. If that's 90, it means this is also 90, and this is also 90. So the most specific name for this shape is a square. It's a square. You just put square, and it says explain, so I would have put all the stuff we just talked about. All 4 sides and all 4 angles. Okay, B. What is B? It's a what? It's a rhombus. Why is it a rhombus? 4 sides are congruent, but are my 4 angles 90 degrees? No. So it can't be a rectangle and it can't be a square. Okay? Angles are not 90 degrees, but the sides are equal. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. All right. Example 2 says quadrilateral A, B, C, D is a rhombus. Find the measure of each angle. So what do we know about the angles in a rhombus? The diagonals bisect each other and also the opposite angles, right? So if this is 62, what's angle 1? 62. Because they bisect in a rhombus and also a square. Those diagonals bisect those angles. What else do we know about a rhombus?
That it has its
4 congruent sides. What else do we know about the side? What else do we know about their angles?
It's not 90 degrees.
Where they meet, though, right? Where the diagonals meet is 90 degrees. So these are 90 degrees. This is 90. This is 90. This would be 90. This would be 90. Can you find angle 4?
You have to subtract
From?
180.
Yep. So I can do it that way. This would be a triangle on the bottom. And all 3 of those would add up to 180. So 62 plus 90 minus from 180.
That's it?
Yep. So angle 1 is 62. Angle 2 is 90. Angle 3 is 90. And angle 4 is 28.
Wait, what? She has to look, she subtracted 180.
I added 62 and 90 because those are the other angles inside here. So 90 is, 90 is here, right? And 62 is here. You could have also said that these angles are supplementary. So 62 plus 62 would give me 124. And then subtract that from 180. 56. And then divide that by 2 to get that this would be 28 and this is 28. So you could do it either way. Whatever way like clicks for you, do it. Yep. All right, last one says quadrilateral MORE is a rectangle. MR is 7x minus 8. EO is 5x. Find the length of x and the length of each diagonal. So I am going to start by drawing this out because I'm a visual person. I like to see the shape. Okay, so if this is my rectangle MORE, what do we know about rectangles?
That it has
4 right angles. Okay. And if this is talking about MR, what's that called? What's that line called? That connects the non-consecutive ones. Like, What's that line called? What's MR called? What's a segment that connects two non-consecutive sides?
Diagonal.
Diagonal.
That's why she highlighted.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
I was looking
What's true about the diagonals in a rectangle? What's true about the diagonals in a rectangle? They're equal. So I can say 5x equals 7x minus 8. Subtract the 7x. Negative 2x equals, this cancels, negative 8. Divide by negative 2. Positive 4, right? So x is 4. And then it also says find the length of each diagonal. How can I do that?
You divide it.
Mm-mm.
Subtract.
Mm-mm. Plug it back in. I can plug it back in here or here because it should be the same. What's going to be easier? 7 times 4 minus 8 or 5 times 4?
7 times 4.
5 times 4.
Just in case I need it.
So x is 4 and the diagonal would be the same no matter what you plug it in. That's how you can check it. And it should be 20. Questions?
Wait, so what's the 4?
Like in addition.